Hello, hello, and welcome to our step-by-step intuitive painting tutorial from our lesson, The Practice of Courage and Confidence. And the reason I decided to share this is because painting in this style takes a little bit of courage. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I want to talk more about that as I go through the lesson. But this first layer, all you are doing is color blocking out two colors. I chose a yellow and a pink tone. It's kind of a fleshy pink tone, but you can choose any two colors that you want that are warm. And that is just because we're kind of doing step by step. It does not have to be the exact colors, and just filling up the page. But this idea of having courage, stepping into something you're not confident that you can really do well, that is any change that you got to make in your life. They say you need to believe in yourself. Well, what if it's that you believe that layer by layer, step by step, you can figure it out? You may not believe you can create a finished work of art that you really like, but you get to this point where you trust that little by little, it'll come together, it'll turn out. And so that's why this painting process can really help us in so many areas of our life, because yes, it's painting. It helps us relax. It helps us have a place to be honest with ourselves and get our thoughts out. But it also is this place to practice this courage of stepping into the unknown and figuring out things as we go. And so with that, this layer 2 that we're moving into is really just about putting marks on the page. And I did kind of these wavy lines. It almost reminds me of trails or something. And partially because of the lessons I've been talking about in module 2, I think this part of the painting kind of represents a little bit of what a map kind of looks like. But the idea was just to put a bunch of different marks. And when I was thinking about it, and I chose just like a cream taupey color and white, because I wanted to keep it kind of neutral. I knew this was going to be in the back. I knew we were going to do a lot of layers. And so it's just something that's going to add some of that depth and some of that interest. And so I also was using 3 different brushes and doing, just trying to get some variation of marks. I also want to point out, if you notice, it's almost like a pattern across it. I have a background in pattern design, so that tends to play out a lot in mine. But one of the things that I will say is when you're doing this and you're trying to bring a painting together, repetition can help pull things together. And that was one thing that I used to always love about pattern design, was that it's like you can take a few elements and then you repeat them over and over, and it creates this full work of art that it was just so cool to see it all come together. And so I've kind of applied that in a more simple way, but it helps give that cohesiveness across the page whenever you repeat things like that. And so that's what we're doing. You'll see it a lot throughout this process. And so in this next layer is starting to put in some things that are a little more recognizable. Again, I kind of had this idea of like a map and this journey on my mind. And so I did these little squiggly. They're kind of like a flower. You do not need to be perfect with them. And I'll show you at the very end, kind of some up close, at how rough my mark making is. That is one thing I love about this process, especially in a journal, is that it does not need to be these like smooth, perfect, finished lines. Things can be kind of wonky. It's okay. Like, it comes together usually pretty well. I will say that this particular painting is not for everyone. I really enjoyed how it came together, so I decided to share it still, to go through with it. But it might not be your cup of tea. It's a lot. It's one of those things that I was like, this may not be for everybody. But you know what's great about a journal? It's not for anybody else. It's for you. If you want to share it, if you want to open it up, great. But I talk about this all the time, that an art journal is for you to work through your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions, to practice courage, to stepping into something you don't know how it's going to turn out. But you trust that if you just play with it, you follow those whims, you follow how you are feeling in that moment and make the best choice that you can, that eventually you can get it to come together. And that is any change we want to make. And so that's what I just want you to keep in mind when you're approaching this, that it's, it's just art. It's just paper. It really does not matter. It is the place that you can mess up. It's not going to impact your life in a big way. But what it does do is it helps you to start trusting yourself. So as we move into this other layer, you'll see that I kept with this theme of nature, and it's almost this grassy feel. I also really love to pull in a lot of movement into what I am doing with these pieces. And again, I think that this is a way that it helps me stay loose and relaxed with, just pulling in these messy, swooping lines, essentially, and that it doesn't necessarily need to look like anything. It doesn't need to be any specific things. I just fill in color in spaces and bring in that movement. Now, another thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is that, as you see I'm working through this, I'm actually working with two colors. So I'm taking this grassy green color and filling in just messy lines that have movement. I kind of swoop back and forth with my hand, and I kind of follow the curves from that white line that's there, but I go in with the green, and then I come back with my turquoise. And then you'll see there I accidentally made an accidental mark out of that cream color because it was on my palette, and I got going so fast that I accidentally grabbed it. And I was like, oops. And then I accidentally grabbed white. And I was like, what is happening right now? And so you just have to make it work. And that's life, right? Like, things get thrown at you, and you're like, I didn't want this. This was not part of my plan. But you have to just kind of go with it and be like, okay, how do I move with this? How do I make this work in my life? How do I keep moving forward? And for me, like, I was just like, all right, like, I'll just pull in more of this. Maybe this was supposed to come onto it, and I kind of listened to and follow that a little more, which I know is silly, but it's just, I've learned that if you make a mistake in this, it's fine. Like, just how can you keep it in a way that it makes sense? So anyways, we're moving into this next layer, and you see I have kind of my grassy feel going, and this kind of felt like a river to me, and I didn't want to cover over everything. So I covered over the flower that was kind of at the end, and then I went kind of lightly through this middle section so that you can still see some of the colors and a little bit of the dimension that's underneath there. Most of the time, certain sections I'll try to cover up, but a lot of the times I'll go light with my paint so that, for one, it dries fairly quickly if I want to take just like a minor break in between each of these layers to let it dry. But also, I really enjoy kind of being able to see what's under, because it's kind of that bit of the story that really helps give more interest and depth to things. And so, again, I'm just playing here. I did not plan any of this painting out. And that's what I want you guys to really understand, is that you have to allow yourself time on a painting and in life to play, to kind of just follow those little whims. And there's a time and place for everything. That's why painting is a good place to practice some of this, but a lot of times in life, we will talk ourselves out of things that we really, really want to do, that we're like, oh, that would be so fun, or that would be so cool. But we don't do it because it's not practical, or we can't see how it really would be productive or move us. I don't know, there's just a lot of reasons that we talk ourselves out of doing things that we just enjoy doing, because it's like we have other things that are the responsibilities. And of course, we have to take care of our responsibilities. I'm not saying that, but I think it's really, really important that we take some time to go out and do those fun things, because that's what keeps us feeling alive. That's what keeps our spirit up. And if we lose track of that and all we do is the responsible part of life, you can start to get really drained and worn down, and you lose kind of that zest and that excitement for living, because it's kind of like, well, I don't get to do anything I want to do anyways. All right, so in this next layer, I start moving in and filling in these flowers And I couldn't decide if I wanted to leave some of the background design or cover it all up. And so I was kind of playing with this thought, and I was using kind of this magenta and then that, it's like a fleshy pink color, which sounds really weird to say like that, but it's the only way I knew how to describe it. So anyways, just filling in these flowers. And, you know, I really don't like to try to paint things solid. And that's just my own personal thing. And again, you know, this is step by step for you to have to see it unfold, for you to try it. I want you to try to do each layer with me. So watch the first layer, pause, color block it out. Then watch the next layer, pause, and do your own version of that layer, you know, and go along layer by layer. And it does not have to be exactly what mine is. It doesn't have to be the colors, but I want you to practice doing this process with me just to get more comfortable with it. Because I have realized that that's part of it. You know, it's people see it and they're like, I'm not a big artist and I can't do that. And so they don't even let themselves do it, even though it's an art journal. I'm not trying to help people be professional artists, at least not at this point in my life. I'm not trying to do that, you know. But I had been talking with a friend, and it actually was the second time I'd had a similar conversation, but she basically was telling me about this artist that she followed on Instagram, and she does these really simple watercolor tutorials. And she's like, you know, I really like it because I can just sit down and I'm really good at, like, I can copy her art. They're easy to do, but I don't really feel like I'm an artist. And when she was saying that, I was thinking, all artists at some point in their life, like a lot of times when we were little, because we really loved art, but the only way we have learned or developed styles is because we copied other artists that we liked. When you go to art school, when you go to different things, like you copy, because that's how you learn. You first copy and learn techniques, and you learn what you're doing, and then you start practicing to make it your own. You start bringing in, well, from this artist, I really loved these elements. From this artist, I really like how she does this or he does that, you know. And so at the end of the day, you end up with your own style, your own thing. But no artist starts there. It's not, I say no, maybe some, but for the most part, artists, you learn by copying. And even as a human being as a whole, you know, you think about a little kid, most of the things they learn is from their parents or whoever raises them. And, you know, through life, like the people you're around, you talk about the importance of who you surround yourself with, because we pick up and we learn, and we kind of mimic what we see. That is just part of it, you know. And I don't mean this like you're trying to change. It's just a natural thing. And I can look back at different points in my life and be like, oh yeah, I definitely was influenced by that person in my life. And I wasn't intending to be, but I was. So that's why you got to be mindful of the people you spend your time with, right? All right, so I want to get back to the painting, and here you'll see I start doing these, like, I don't even know what you would call this shape. It's a little bit more on the geometric side of things. It's actually a shape that I'd seen from my comforter, because while I was putting all this together, I was dealing with me being sick, and then my son being sick, my daughter. Like it went through our household. And while I was helping to take care of my daughter, I was just looking at my bedspread, and it was in between on these layers, and this shape was kind of on there, and I'm like, I really love how it has these shapes. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to try that and bring it into the painting a little bit, because there's just something that I don't know, like it was nice, but I just wasn't loving it. And this shape made no sense to do on top. I would be completely honest. I was a little bit like, I don't know why I would do this. Like it's like two different ideas kind of going on, but I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, and I always tell myself that. I'm like, it really doesn't matter. It's like, do I want to do it? Yeah. All right, I'm going to do it. So please keep that attitude when you're doing this. It doesn't have to make sense. Don't try to like rationalize it or convince yourself that it's like, oh, this is good or that's not, because you might end up with 100 layers, but you just keep going. And there is this point where it's like you don't want to just like over and over do stuff, which is funny for me to say right at this point because I go over these little shapes I don't know how many times, a lot. So I had the magenta, and then I did kind of that pinky color, and then I mixed the tangerine orange with some white and went over it. And then I think some of them I did like the really, really light aqua color. So it's layered. And I do this a lot. I've noticed on like around leaves or if I have line shapes that I'll layer up a couple different colors. And it's just something I'm really liking right now. It's like, it just adds this level of interest that, I don't know, I really like it. And so it's paying attention to what you like, and you don't have to understand why you like it. You just have to be like, do I like it? Yeah. All right, cool. And do it, and if you don't, then paint over it, which I didn't make a note, or I don't think I made a comment on the big purple looking flower things that I had, we had drawn the shapes for to do those that I told you guys. And then I was like, well, if they're following along, they're probably not going to like me for this. I covered over them all because I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, I'm just not feeling it. I've really been in this mood of creating a lot of movement, which again is funny for these like geometric shapes on top, but they just felt right. It's kind of like the movement with the structure of things. And, I could try to analyze it all day. I'm not going to, but I wanted to say those flowers, I didn't like them. And so I covered them up. I was like, I'm going to just do big swooping motions and see if I like that. And I did. And so then I added a little bit more depth with the white because I felt they felt a little flat. So it's just one choice at a time and then engaging if you like it or you don't like it and what little adjustment could you make and see, does that feel good? Does that bring me joy? Which I always think is a funny thing to say in this, but it is. It's about tapping into just what you enjoy, what you like. And I want to also make a comment that while this is coming to the end, it's getting wrapped up. If you're like, you know what, I really liked that second layer where it was really simple, it was color blocked, and it just had some of the mark makings that kind of looked like a trail, you could absolutely cover over all this. Do your color blocking again. You don't have to keep it. Like acrylic, I've said it time and time again, but you can cover all the way over that. So if you're like, you got done with this and you're like, yeah, no, I don't like this at all. It doesn't matter if you have spent all this time building it and all this time doing something. If it does not feel right, if it is just like, you're like, I don't like it, this doesn't feel good to me, you absolutely can cover over it. Or if you want to be really dramatic, you can rip it out and throw it away. Like it's just paper and paint. And it is just here for you to learn some more about yourself, to help you process through your thoughts and your feelings. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it inspires you that you can do this layer by layer, not just in painting, but in your life for any change that you're wanting to make. All right, I will see you guys in the next tutorial.